This is a big one. Manchester United against Aston Villa. United finally suffered defeat under Michael Carrick in their away game against Newcastle United in the league last time. Aston Villa, though, then free fall after looking like they had those Champions League places sealed a couple of weeks ago. They look like they're the most likely team to fall out of that Champions League, all those Champions League places. Dan, big game for Unai Emery and his Villa side. It's going to be very disappointing if they miss out on Champions League football, but their current form shows that they probably are the ones most likely to miss out.
Yes, it looks that way because we're putting third versus fourth together at the weekend, but this result will have ramifications for what Chelsea and Liverpool hope to achieve as well. So a lot of focus on this fixture. You're right in the sense that Villa seem to be running out of steam at just the wrong time, which is not what you want to see for any football club, but always painful to see in the final quarter of the campaign. Unai Emery's men have picked up just a point out the last 9. That's not good enough if you want to be getting Champions League football. Just feels like the attacking output has really dried off lately. A lot has been made of XG and how you can't outrun it. Villa, not fortunate, but obviously scoring a lot of goals from outside the area early in the season. You did wonder if that was sustainable. It looks now the case that it's not, and now Villa are feeling the pinch. They just haven't really scored enough goals in general. Only 39 in 29 matches. For a team in the top 4, that's not really enough. You need a rock solid defence of Arsenal levels to really make that count. And the way they are going at the moment, Chelsea and Liverpool nipping at their heels, they need a result on Sunday, but I'm not overly confident they can. So yes, a big game with a lot of impact from 3rd through to 6th.
Villa a really interesting case. At the start of the season, they didn't start too well. And then they went on this incredible run. Maybe it was also helped by the fact that some of the big guns also experienced a blip at the time. Do you think maybe the early season showing was probably the true reflection of where they were at? And maybe the run they went on was maybe a blip?
It's hard to say, really, because as you rightly say, the start was so slow that in the first couple of weeks, you're thinking, could Villa be a team that gets sucked into a relegation battle, which looked really unlikely at the start in the summer, but over the first few weeks, you thought the goals are going to be a real concern. So if you took the first, 5 games out of the equation and said they scored 39 goals in 24 matches, it looks a bit better. Maybe it's just as simple as the rut at the start, the over-performance is now kind of just balanced out into what you would expect as form, and maybe this is the form we're going to see over the next 9 games, and that is the case. It's not going to equal enough points compared to what Chelsea and Liverpool expect to earn. So it's just been a lumpy season for Aston Villa. If the form was more blended and it wasn't such a slow start and it wasn't such a purple patch and it was just kind of, more wins than not across the weeks, and they were still at the same outcome, you just say, well, that's a team just normally chasing for 4th. But because they've touched almost the title race and then dropped off, everyone's sort of framing it as, well, this is a Villa team which is failing. I think sometimes you're going to get sucked into not looking into the bigger picture. It's still not a bad campaign, but when you are joint 2nd at one stage and now you're kind of looking over your shoulder thinking, well, 5th and 6th might swallow me up as well, it's natural to be disappointed.
All right, let's talk about Manchester United next. And Michael Carrick had a tremendous start to life at Manchester United. And it did look like, once again, against Newcastle United, Newcastle had a player sent off, took the lead, Newcastle United then equalized. And you felt like the game was set up for United to go on and win again. But this time, it didn't particularly go according to plan. Does that maybe show that we're probably rating Michael Carrick a little too highly? He's done a fantastic job at United. But United show the signs that they still have those old frailties still within the team.
Yes, I mean, they obviously showed that the chinks in the armour are there. I think the unbeaten run had to come to an end at some point. In the context of when it did, obviously losing to a team of 10 men is obviously going to be ultimately disappointing. You're right in the sense that at half-time, Newcastle were man light. You're thinking the only United that are going to win this are Man United. They just didn't really turn up in the second half. It looked like a game which was petering out to a 1-1 draw. And then William Asuna got that stunning winner to give Newcastle all 3 points. So that is a blip in itself, but it's about how and if they can bounce back. If they do bounce back at the weekend, then you just say, well, it's just a kind of natural drop off in a game in isolation and it's not too much of an issue. Obviously, Michael Carrick's long-term future still not to be decided, whether that's now being more of an issue because he doesn't know what he's doing. The club don't really know what direction they're going in. So if there was some kind of finality to it already, then you kind of say, okay, well, at least Carrick knows that he's got 9 games left and will do the absolute best, but you don't know if he's playing for his future or if he's going to be handing the reins to somebody else. So it's a funny one at Manchester United. But again, when you look at the way their season has transformed, they've obviously got the flip side to Aston Villa, where they were in such a low position pre-Carrick, and now they really are, gunning for Champions League football. And you kind of think, well, if they do get Champions League football, it would be a great success. And then maybe you stick with what you've got in terms of the manager. It's a difficult decision. Thankfully, Tolu, we don't have to make it. But it's to be interesting to see what they do in terms of manager at Old Trafford. It'd be quite harsh as well if they don't give it to Carrick. But maybe the job will get harder once he's permanent, because then there's no safety net to say, well, it's not my job anyway. I guess it's framed as he'll be giving it to somebody, so the results aren't going to be too impactful if they do lose, because it's always going to be someone else's job. But if he takes it next season, there's no other fall guy. He'll have to sort of embrace the United post on a full-time basis. So we'll see what happens at the weekend, but I think it might just be a minor blip just at Newcastle in 90 minutes.
Everyone's talked about just how much of a factor it is that United have exited all the cup competitions pretty early, got out of the Carabao Cup very early, also knocked out the FA Cup pretty early. And the fact that they only have one game to worry about every weekend keeps them fresh, keeps them focused. How much of that is really important? I personally think that, yes, there's fatigue and all for the teams who play multiple competitions, but I just think you can build momentum by playing as frequently as possible. United fans don't think so. They feel they're fresher if they play just the one game every week. What do you think about that? Do you think that's a factor in how United have played, or it doesn't really matter? There was always going to be a bounce with Michael Carrick in charge.
I think the bounce has led into the fact they are fresher. I think if Man United were taken over and they had their own European exploits, I don't think they go on the domestic run, which they have. Everything is now just fully focused on Premier League football, and that has to be a huge benefit compared to a team like Aston Villa, who have gone deep into the Europa League. All those extra games in the tank are going to catch you out at some point. I'm not saying it's a huge factor, because obviously these are very fit players. It shouldn't be an overriding factor, but surely if you're Manchester United and you are playing once a week, you've got to have a bit more punch in yourself to go and get these results. So I think it does give Michael Carrick a huge boost. I think that's kind of woven together, and I think that's been the reason why Manchester United are where they are.
All right, so let's put our betting caps on for this one. United against Villa, how does this one go?
Well, when they played over the Christmas break, or just before the Christmas break, sorry, it was a 2-1 win for Aston Villa. Morgan Rogers getting both goals at Villa Park. I think it's going to be the flip reverse at Old Trafford. I'm going to go for a 2-1 United win. If you want to simplify it and go for both teams to score, that would make it a bit safer. But I'm going to go for the correct score. I'm going to go all out for a 2-1 home win. And I think that's going to strengthen Man United. Well, it will strengthen Man United bid for third. But as I say, it will also give a huge boost to Chelsea and Liverpool. So this could be the worst possible news for Aston Villa, but great news for Man United fans.
All right, there you have it. A correct score. United to beat Aston Villa by 2-1. Thank you very much, Dan.
Cheers, Tolu.